We are live.
All right.
Not live.
Well, not live.
Semi-live.
Hi. It's October 4th, and we just saw the Joker movie.
This is Dr. Diana Fleischman.
Dr. Diana Fleischman, Dr. Justin Murphy, and Dr. Geoffrey Miller.
There's so much brain power going to pick apart this movie.
Did you Google what the controversies were? Because I literally don't know a single
Joker controversy.
We are virgins to the controversy. I think we should just talk about it.
His film has sparked debate for two main reasons. The online fandom inspired by the character and fears of possible gun violence. So, I am going to steelman this claim that this movie is dangerous.
Okay.
Because
Go for it.
I feel...
No, go for it.
No, so if you have somebody really... So, I saw Natural Born Killers back in the... When was it come out? The 90s?
Early 90s.
And I have to say, Natural Born Killers, I was a teenager, young teenager when I saw it. And I have to say it was very affecting to me. And it definitely did glamorize violence. And, the other day I was hanging out with a bunch of people and I said, my former advisor, David Buss, found that some 90-some-odd% of people have had homicidal fantasies. And almost all the people I was hanging out with said that they had never had a homicidal fantasy. And I cannot imagine that you can see a film which really glorifies violence and makes it look like not just glorious and interesting, but also kind of beautiful and not have that affect you in some way. So I don't think it's going to be like a long-term effect, but I certainly felt energized when I came out of Joker. And I can see how somebody who is really sensitive to this kind of energy would potentially be compelled to, because you even see copycat, so in mass shootings, for example, in movie theaters, some whatever loser who kills a bunch of people in a movie theater, he inspires other people to do the same, and that's not even glamorous or interesting. That guy his manifesto's got typos, he's not cool, right? And this guy was kind of amazing.
Well, we all emerged from the theater here in Albuquerque, just typical suburban theater, feeling kind of like little rebels, and we wanted to make trouble and get into nasty stuff and hang out in bad bars and drink and have fights and drive badly.
So we figured the least harm we could do is come home and record something.
We're just going to rationalize it, intellectualize it, to sublimate all of our rebelliousness into
talking peacefully in a nice home.
I'm going to get drunk. Hold on.
Diana, I was just going to say that I think your argument is plausible, but unfortunately the media effects research is pretty shit. It's very, very wishy-washy, and I generally don't trust many claims or findings to the effect of kind of discrete media effects, such as a particular movie or even particular media, like the TV as such or movies as such, have very profound effects on any types of behaviors.
You study this, right?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert exactly on that, but yeah. I'm
Cheers, honey.
Cheers. That's interesting. You went for the beer. I thought you were going for a beer.
I'm going for the mountain.
What happened here?
You're never going to sleep.
Did you get that from the shelf at the door?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because that's the cold one.
It's delicious.
So, I was afraid that you might have accidentally taken the warm one.
I'm drinking a Bosque Brewing Company Jetty Jack. Jeffrey's drinking Mountain Dew.
They pronounce it Bosky.
Bosky.
Yeah.
And you're drinking just a glass of wine. Bosky.
You've been here 2 months. You should know how to pronounce Spanish.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm not an expert exactly on media effects per se, but from what I do know of the literature, I don't really believe many of them. That's all I'm really getting at. So.
Well, the psychology stuff, for example, on video games,
right,
is they have astonishingly little effect. You can play, first-person shooters and do thousands of sniper headshots.
And
it doesn't even spill over.
That's even the ones that find positive effects. Yeah. Even the positive effects that are found are very small, and then there's all the others that find no effects. It's a very mixed. It's very mixed literature.
Okay.
So I don't buy it.
But it's plausible because people go to these movies and they come out kind of jacked up and they think, oh, my inhibitions are down. But actually, very little happens. Likewise, you play a video game and you think, I feel so homicidal. But
I would actually argue that our susceptibility to having our behaviors affected by media is decreasing over time. I think our relationship to art is actually weaker, right? Because in previous eras, it was not uncommon for it. I mean, there are famous stories. I couldn't give you a source exactly, but one, I remember there's this famous case in Belgium, I think it was, in the turn of the century, where coming out of an opera, there were some like mass shootings, essentially. A kind of a much earlier sense of that term, right? They didn't have machine guns, available or anything like that. But there have been some cases of that, and that's why people like Rousseau were always very, the moral and behavioral implications of kind of artistic liberty. I think were actually more of a live wire back in the day than they are now, because nowadays we're relatively pacified people.
Well, if you look at something like I think it's a Netflix movie, The Highwayman, that's about sort of the Bonnie and Clyde thing, but from the lawman's point of view, that was sort of an example of how even in the 30s, just printed newspaper reports of bank robberies and crime sprees could inspire copycats, and how kind of horrifying that was to the lawmen at the time.
Yeah, I think that I can see what you're saying is that we would be desensitized because we imbibe so much media. I remember something that blew my mind when I was like 20 years old. I was in a class about psychology and cultural effects, and this guy was saying that going to church would have been such a profound experience back in the 1600s, 1500s, because it was a place with color and light and nice smells and art everywhere.
Bingo.
And it would have been just a huge contrast from day-to-day life. And now we're just surrounded in these opulent environments, comfort, plushness, art, affecting things. So all of these things have maybe lost their power over us. But I can see how if you were in a very sensitive, maybe if you're in a very sensitive, vulnerable space and you're already aggressive, it doesn't take so, it takes so little to tip you over the edge that something would, because we are surrounded by images of violence. There's just no way to put somebody like that in a control condition where they wouldn't actually see something that would inspire them to violence.
So speaking of environmental effects, I think one of the key themes in the movie is sort of genetics versus blank slate and heredity versus upbringing and stress.
Are you just saying that's what you're interested in, or you think that was purposeful, a major angle in it?
I think it was a major angle in the screenplay.
I didn't get that.
Because...
Spoilers, by the way, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so don't even listen to us if you haven't seen it, because why would you? Anyway.
Well, because spoilers don't actually spoil films. When people know the end of films, they enjoy them just as much. So if you haven't seen it and you believe me, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe you should listen to this before you see it, so you have correct opinions going into it.
That's right.
You'll have the right lenses
Blank
on.
slate versus genetic determinism and mental illness.
Preach.
I believe we were left with some ambiguity about the causal forces that determine the Joker's bad behavior. We don't really know if he was sired by Thomas Wayne, marginally sociopathic millionaire, or some unknown
Why is he a sociopath?
dude.
Just because he's a millionaire?
No, because he actually acted like a dick.
Like where?
Well, like in the bathroom and on TV. And
If some weirdo was watching you pee, you would have been like way nicer to him. You were like, oh, hey, dude.
No, I would have been a little ornery, but also on TV he had a very, I'm going to save Gotham kind of narcissistic savior complex.
Sure.
Anyway, we don't know if he was the dad or if some unknown dude who knocked up Peggy, the mom, was the dad. Penny. Wait, okay.
Penny Fleck.
Penny Fleck.
Lucky Penny.
Which slightly disturbed me because your nickname for me is Lucky Buttons. No relation. So we don't know his provenance genetically, really. And I think sort of blank slaters will look at that and go, oh, his poor upbringing, his poor childhood, his trauma, his beatings, his poverty, stressors, city life really got to him. And I think a hereditarian would see the movie and go, well, Wayne is evil or unknown dad is evil. But
so one of the major themes of the film is whether or not Arthur Fleck is the biological son of Penny Fleck and Thomas Wayne, or whether he's been adopted. And there's like all these headlines and stuff in the paper that said a woman is violent towards adoptive son. And Justin was like, hey, maybe Thomas Wayne is like just gaslighting him, and maybe Batman and Joker are actually half brothers, which would be pretty interesting, right? Twist. And maybe it was Thomas Wayne, right?
Right.
Maybe he managed to engineer all this stuff so that his love child was hidden because he was already a very powerful man. And one piece of evidence for that is that even though he was raised with a mother who had delusions and narcissistic personality or whatever he found in the file at Arkham, it's pretty unlikely that two people who are unrelated would develop a similar kind of mental illness.
Well,
because
Thomas Wayne could have easily had Penny Fleck committed as delusional, paranoid, schizophrenic, whatever, because he was rich and powerful. And I don't think it would have faked the records. It just would have been involuntary committal of her, right?
No, but why would it say that she had an adopted kid?
Because then that would insulate Thomas Wayne from paternity suits.
That's what I'm saying. But you're saying that he wouldn't have had to change the records. He would have.
Okay.
Anyway.
Had to do so. Yeah.
So the condition that this guy had where he basically laughs even when nothing is funny, and I believe it says at some point in the movie quite clearly that even if he doesn't feel anything, he laughs at inopportune moments. So one question is, do you think that's a thing at all? Like,
definitely is a thing.
Is it? That's a known condition?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit like Tourette's, but there are definitely people who laugh inappropriately.
No, it's a classic symptom of schizophrenia.
all
Is
the
that
time.
right?
That was
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Is that right? Okay.
Well, because if you're having inner voices that are talking to you, sometimes they say funny shit.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
might be delusions, but
But okay, so as a standalone symptom, though, that would be pretty unheard of, right? Like that's your only problem is you laugh at inopportune times.
I honestly don't know the psych research.
There
I
were
just
some
I just know it's a pretty common.
Incredibly
schizophrenic
beautiful
thing.
like callback. So in that little, he's got a little card that he carries around with him that says, "I laugh uncontrollably. It's a neurological condition. Thank you for reading." That little card that this woman turns over, this black woman on the subway with him, is in the same font and style as Charlie Chaplin subtexts.
Okay, right.
Oh yeah.
And then later there's Charlie Chaplin Modern Times. So there's all kinds of kind of callbacks. But
So what's that reference then? What does that mean?
Oh, it's just like a mirroring of artistic style. I mean, it could mean something, but I'm just not.
Okay.
I'm not a film studies person.
Right.
But Geoffrey thought that Thomas Wayne and Arthur Fleck looked related, but I think that Murray Franklin and Arthur Fleck look more related.
Really?
I think
Interesting.
I think any resemblance between Joaquin Phoenix and De Niro was accidental, but I think Thomas Wayne was actually specifically cast to look like he could have been a plausible dad.
Yeah.
And
I think so because there's that one scene where the Joker says, "Come on, look at us."
yeah, exactly.
Right? So they had to be both cast such that would at least make enough sense, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you notice how he said Joker would call Murray?
Yeah. We were saying that he kind of started got like a gay accent, which is totally a thing. As things got.
I thought it was constant the whole time. I didn't notice it go up or down.
So if you guys are interested in
Who was the Joker who killed himself? Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And so he's, in some ways, Joaquin Phoenix is kind of like following in the footsteps of that. Dude, how crazy would it be if Joaquin Phoenix offed himself?
that would be terrible. He's so talented, though.
What if the Joker role is just like so insanely, intensely scripted? There's just something about its nature that it just drives mad anyone who dares to assume its role.
Yeah, I could see that actually. And so you're saying it's God, it's so fucking scary.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. Take my card.
We laughed. I think we laughed more than other people in the cinema, though. It's so affecting to see horrible shit and hear laughter at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking like you and I were both laughing a lot and we're very different. So I was kind of thinking like for you, you're probably enjoying it because you like identify with this sociopathy. Whereas for me, it's like a release from it. It's like cathexis. I get to kind of like vicariously enjoy something that's not so much my nature. Whereas for you, did you feel like you were represented in this? Like your identity categories were being mainstreamed.
I think it was interesting that we had a kind of a conversation about what is shamelessness right before this film, because I think we have different kinds of shamelessness, totally different kinds, right?
Well, you guys were talking about who would make a better beggar if you impersonated a beggar.
Yes.
And just used the most sociopathic, manipulative
Yeah.
beggar tactics.
So for the people on Sneer Club who are wondering what it's like to be sitting around our kitchen table, that's the kind of shit we talk about. Who could make a better panhandler? I think I have titties, so I'd be a better panhandler on average. Hold on. Okay, so I'm on IMDb, and they have trivia, and they have quotes and goofs. But he was meant to seem a little bit like, I think, Taxi Driver. Yeah.
There was a lot of intertextuality going on there, as the postmodern theorists call it.
Yeah, I mean,
you two both are really impressing me with your literary theory.
I would never study film because it's a waste of life and energy and intellectual ability.
Okay. Here we are making a podcast about film. You're really selling it up, Diana. Well
I'm
done.
having a good time, and I will say.
And so are film theorists.
Are they?
Well, right. I mean, that's what it is, right? It's like your point is well taken for sure. There's a lot of jerking off in all of that.
Yeah.
But jerking off feels good, right? I mean, academic theorists, especially if you're a prestigious film theorist and you get to write long books about the philosophy of horror, it's fun, probably. You know.
I have some baggage about this because this very intelligent girlfriend of mine decided to study film, and I was very disappointed. But anyway, there we go. So Taxi Driver.
That movie's amazing. I don't remember very much about movies, but I remember it was amazing.
So there were a lot of callbacks to previous Batman-related films, of course, and a lot of the visual style of the Joker called back to that. There was callbacks to Taxi Driver, pretty much to any gritty 70s cop, criminal, sort of French Connection. There was a lot of French Connection subway action, actually. And then the Charlie Chaplin Modern Times. And there were little bits of, actually a huge number of 70s films. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
But how much of that is references and how much of that is the fact of just a shared background features, right? Like, yes, there are similar looking subways in these movies, right? Sure. How much of that is intertextuality and how much of that is just...
I bet if you did a shot-by-shot analysis, there'd be some overlapping like cinematography.
Maybe someone's made like some fancy YouTube video showing these in detail.
Oh, and of course, Dog Day Afternoon.
What's Dog Day?
I'm not sure I've seen that one.
So Al Pacino plays a bank robber trying to rob a bank to raise money to get the sex change operation for his, I'm not kidding, for his trans boyfriend, girlfriend.
Wow.
And he holds hostages, but he and his sidekick become so popular with the media that they become kind of media heroes and inspire this big cult following within a few hours. And the whole film's about basically how this kind of weird nobody becomes a kind of cult criminal figure, like overnight. So I think there's a little bit of that.
Natural Born Killers has that same aspect, although I haven't seen the film you're talking about. So.
Yeah, so there's also Natural Born Killers callbacks.
So this is interesting. Joaquin Phoenix based his laugh on videos of people suffering from pathological laughter.
Wow.
He said that perfecting the Joker's laugh was the toughest part of playing the character. And then, I don't know where they got this. This is IMDb. He also sought to portray a character that the audience could not identify with.
Interesting. I thought it was so fun to watch. I thought it
was like super identifiable. Like everybody's been bullied and had terrible shit happen to them.
No, I think that's right. I think the genius of the acting is normally the actor will do at least a few little things that kind of create a connection to the audience. And here I think he maintained an absolute wall.
That's a good point, but Diana's point also is good that like I definitely found him sympathetic, right? I mean, you generally are rooting for him. Aren't most people rooting for Joker in this movie?
I think you can't root for somebody unless you identify with them. Like if you don't identify with somebody at all.
I think both can be true. I think both can be true.
I felt like he was sort of an alien, and I could not relate to him at all, and yet I was sort of rooting for him.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I would say too. Like I wouldn't say I identified with him. Like I saw a piece of myself in him. Not so much, but nonetheless, it attracted sympathy.
Oh, speaking of Joaquin Phoenix, was good friends with Heath Ledger.
That's a bad sign for his future mental health.
And Joaquin Phoenix lost a lot of weight for this role as Joker. It was so serious that filming could be done only once, with no opportunity for reshoots.
Whoa.
Yeah. I wonder, like, because he must have smoked hundreds of cigarettes, right, in takes and retakes and stuff like that. I wonder if I've heard about actors gaining a lot of weight, but I wonder if you lose that much weight and smoke that many cigarettes, if you're just, like, never the same again.
It's It's a good question.
Well, Christian Bale did okay after The Machinist, where I think he was down
Did he
to,
do
like,
okay?
Well, what do we know about him? Like,
Well,
is he fucked up?
brilliant actor. I mean, The Machinist, he must have been down to like 120,
I've never seen
130
it.
pounds.
Yeah, I remember that.
I heard he goes off on people.
But I mean, what's his mental health like now? I know there was that audio leaked of him like being an asshole, but
Yeah.
being an asshole is not that bad, right? I mean, is he? Do we think he's a fucked up person?
He's still a successful working actor, right? Portrayed, then gained like 100 pounds to portray Dick Cheney.
Right. Yeah, he's good at like weight fluctuations. That's his specialty.
I'm kind of awestruck by actors who can do that.
You know, Viggo Mortensen turned down the role as Thomas Wayne. Do you think Viggo Mortensen looks like Arthur Fleck?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, because he has a kind of long nose and not much distance between nose and top lip and all that Joaquin Phoenix kind of physiognomy.
Okay, so here's what I really liked about this movie. It is not very common to see in mainstream cinema depictions of people who are really fucked up and even bad people having fun. It's like bad people can have fun. And fun, no matter how like low you are, no matter how downtrodden you are, no matter how evil you might even be, people can still have fun. And there's something kind of dangerous about that, but something that I really like about that. I liked seeing this person who was just so loathsome in many ways and obviously quite violent and harmful, but he insisted on having fun. He insisted on a kind of cheerful demeanor. And usually in most media, bad people they're like denied that freedom. They're denied that ability to actually also, there might be some good things that one gets to experience even in the depths of evil.
Even, in all of the Batman movies, like, maybe not Catwoman, but like Penguin and Joker and Scarecrow and whatever, there are moments that they're having fun, but I don't identify with them. So it doesn't really seem that way. Whereas
What were the examples again, Sam?
I don't know about Catwoman, but certainly Penguin.
Okay, right.
Really old. I can't even remember. That's one of the only about.
Yeah, and they were such secondary roles. Like you're not like in the head of them
right.
for very long at all.
So like to get into Arthur Fleck's mind, why do you think he walked? So your favorite part was when he went in the fridge.
That was one of them.
Well, I think the fun is a good point because, like, normally I think when people who aren't at all involved in criminal activity think of being in a gang, they think everybody's serious, like really trying to front and be serious all the time. But I bet it's really fun to be in a gang, and mostly they just hang out and laugh about shit,
Right.
including crazy, terrible stuff they've done. But probably they just sit around talking about like Tarantino movies and drinking beer and
Right.
doing all the normal stuff.
Oh.
But they also have a special bond because they're all like criminals together, and they kind of know that like this is as good as life's gonna get anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a gallows humor,
Yeah,
but spread collectively and over time in some sense.
I think it's probably the same with soldiers who are deployed. Like there's a lot of laughter
For sure.
in between the fucked upness.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it was also interesting how, incels as a class, they're so shadowy in the public imagination. And not that something like the Joker is some sort of like representative sample, of course not, but I think it's kind of cool that the incel gets a little bit of stage time in a way that isn't totally just pathetic. I like that.
And he like kisses that woman who's, I think what is she based on? Dr. Ruth?
She's based on every sort of self-righteous psychologist.
That was funny, yeah.
She was, yeah.
Instead
So
of on TV,
this
right?
is another aspect of the inceldom, right? So in the film, he has a girlfriend. He thinks he's got a girlfriend, and he has these delusions that she's come with him everywhere. And I knew immediately, the second that he went in to kiss her, that this was all his imagination. And when did you guys know that she wasn't really his girlfriend?
We didn't realize.
Yeah, we were talking about
Justin
this.
and I did not realize until the flashback sequence that was specifically designed to show, she wasn't actually there or there or there.
Right, I was saying I was like so pro Joker the whole time that I was basically in his universe to the bitter end. I wanted to hang on with everything I could to him being right and the world being wrong.
I was kind of having flashbacks to the What Women Want / Mate book. Like, you go, Joker. Yeah, part of his tactics. Don't nag her. That's bad. And I thought, yeah, maybe he's really getting his shit together. Like he had the confidence to become a little more the Joker from getting laid.
Imagine a man walking into your apartment with a bloody nose, covered in clown makeup, making out and fucking that guy. Can you imagine that?
He wasn't totally unattractive.
They were portrayed as having chemistry in the elevator.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that was real, I think, wasn't
You
it?
could have chemistry all day long. If you showed up and I love you in clown makeup with a busted nose, I wouldn't have fucked you.
No. Well, hang on. Because, so, I remember thinking about this in the elevator scene when he first meets this, for people who didn't see it, young, attractive black woman who lives next door to him, basically. In the elevator, he didn't look that bad. He looked and he has his sexy moments. You know, he's not an unattractive man, and he has that kind of aloof, mysterious, dangerous kind of character to him sometimes. And so, in that elevator scene, which I do think was real, right? Like, that wasn't a hallucination, was it?
Yeah.
That first elevator scene,
The
right?
first elevator scene was true. Yes.
I remember thinking about this in that scene. He did look fairly good. Like, it was plausible, and I thought they definitely were. They were doing the stinky eye thing, you know.
She was flirting with him initially, and then when he did this thing back to her, so she pretended
Right,
to
she
shoot
pulled her
herself
kid.
with her fingers, only away from her kid so her kid wouldn't notice. And then when he did that in front of her, where her kid could see, she knew right away he was unstable, because you don't do that in front of a child. And then in the next scene, he's stalking her.
Yeah.
And then in the next scene, he talks to her. She knocks on his door and she's like, "Were you following me to work?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah." And she seems flattered that he was stalking her. And you guys thought it was reasonable that a woman might be flattered that a man was stalking them.
Well, here's what I was doing. I was overcorrecting in terms of thinking about how was she calibrated in terms of the other menfolk who are available in that neighborhood or that building. And I figured they're all going to be colossal world-class losers and probably mostly pretty serious drug addicts and like more obviously violent. And she's a single mom, poor, living in a shitty place. So I was thinking kind of generously, maybe he seems like kind of the best thing around compared to the outside outfit.
No, I thought that too a little bit. I see that point for sure. The other thing is, my response to this, Diana, is simply to say that you're assuming verisimilitude. And I was thinking that this was just perhaps one weird creative plot twist.
See?
So, yeah, I mean, movies usually are not super realistic. They make things up. They go in weird directions. I just thought that for, up until quite close to the end, I just had an open mind to the possibility that this was some sort of weird creative thing.
I will say, in your defense, that there are women who are really attracted to psychopaths. And I don't think that film has done a very good job. I think in Natural Born Killers is one example. I think Harley Quinn is not a great example, but anyway, of women who are genuinely attracted to psychopaths. I just don't think that he's not like a sexy, slick psychopath until the very, very end. He's like a skinny, slightly disabled psychopath. And I think that when women choose psychopaths, they're usually a bit more conventional in every other respect.
Yeah, but how many times have you walked down the street or been in some kind of sleazy place and you see some couple and you go, how the fuck does that work? Like, how were they even attracted to each other?
It happens all the
Because,
time. I mean,
yeah.
I look in the mirror at both of us and I'm just kidding.
I know the attractiveness gap, the age gap, all the gaps. The
No, I do
gap.
see that occasionally, yeah. But
And some women just have bad mate choice.
yeah, that's absolutely true.
I thought Joaquin Phoenix's mate choice in this film was decent.
I'm very compelled by him as a man. Like I think he's a very, very attractive man. And I think all the close-ups of his face, I mean, he was super compelling to me.
I suspect that the attraction you feel towards him is indistinguishable from his fame and the halo effect of being an actor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can really separate that. If you saw the actual person, Joaquin Phoenix, in a bar, and he wasn't a famous actor, you would not look twice, probably.
I mean, from what I've seen in interviews and stuff like that, he's got a lot of charisma. But in terms of like, if it was like Joaquin Phoenix's physical form,
Right, you wouldn't
without
be
the
impressed.
intelligence, fame, and charisma that
Right.
goes along with it, no.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to the stuffing, as it
I,
were.
I also had a little bit of a leftover charisma residue around Joaquin Phoenix from his role as Emperor Commodus in Gladiator, you know, which he apparently must have played when he was about 14, because
Oh, wow.
he doesn't. No, I mean Gladiator was 2000, so
Okay. Yeah.
20 years.
How
ago.
old is Joaquin Phoenix?
But Commodus was a pretty glamorous figure.
Didn't he have a family member who got killed or drugs or suicide or something? Wasn't it
Okay.
River Phoenix?
What was their relationship?
Brother, cousin, I forgot.
Let's speculate wildly.
What happened to
while
him?
Diana
What was the
looks
story
up.
of River
He
Phoenix? though?
overdosed on
Oh, yeah.
drugs because he was like an early
Right.
kind of child movie star,
Right. Okay.
famous, rich.
So let's see. Joaquin Phoenix, related to River Phoenix, friends with Heath Ledger, and just played a killer role of the
Yeah.
Joker.
I-
You know, what's the over under for
River
him
died when he
being
was-
alive in 10 years?
23. Joaquin is only 44. I mean, he just looks.
He probably lost 10 years of his life in this role.
Yeah, he looks super old.
I want to pray for Joaquin Phoenix very briefly.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
I was just
Joaquin-
being very glib about it, but
Joaquin,
seriously,
brother, if
look
you're-
out for yourself, dude.
If you're listening,
Yeah.
take care of yourself. Just go to Bali for like 6 months, hang out in
He's
Ubud.
fine. He's
Just-
on Twitter.
I don't know, I think the
You have to be
statistical
very
predictors-
mentally robust to be on Twitter.
You do.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's another factor increasing probability of suicide. Joaquin, dude, we're just worried about you. We really appreciated your role. We're very grateful for the performance.
So
But now you need a serious and long-term project of rest and recovery, because we would hate to see you go the way that many other actors have gone. Peace out, brother. Amen.
We're having a moment here.
You guys are having a moment.
It's kind of a. What's the meta meditation where you're sending
Meta.
loving. Meta, you're sending loving. We're sending loving kindness meta
Send
meditations.
loving vibes,
Nice.
Joaquin Phoenix. But I mean, it's just, I just thought I just wanted to say overall, I love the film. It was beautiful art. The acting was incredible. The gritty cityscapes, the huge rats, Gotham, the subways. Just, I love the kind of confluence of the beautiful human progress with just disgusting trash everywhere and chaos. Like the juxtaposition of those two things constantly, this glittering civilization and this gritty chaos, was amazing. The kind of guys who beat him up, all the shit that he went through, the makeup, the clothing, it was just stunning. But also I was wondering if you guys were going to relate this back to social justice, because there does seem to be a social justice kind of undercurrent, a criticism of social justice.
I just have one brief comment on the grittiness of Gotham. Did you notice the cleanest setting, the cleanest environment in the whole film was?
The bank.
No. Arkham Asylum was the only place that wasn't a shithole. It was white, pristine.
There was
It
that
almost-
there was
it
the nice
almost
theater
so white
that they were
I
in.
thought maybe he's kind of gone to heaven and this is an afterlife.
Yeah, perhaps.
There was the nice theater where he was working and then went to the dad, or the guy he thought that was the dad. That was nice.
Yeah, the places where the rich people were.
Right.
I also,
Yeah.
was thinking about what future people would think watching that film. Can you imagine everybody living in fluorescent lights all the time? Like, future people will think that is as bad as... I'm actually grateful that future people will think that something as benign as a flickering fluorescent light is just a horror that should not be burdened.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought.
So, like Utopia, utopians would think just any tiny horror is too horrible.
Like the cutting of social services. Oh my God. He couldn't get his meds anymore. There was a little bit of a like Medicare for all subtext going on there.
I don't know. So because you love to talk about social justice, what did you guys think? Because he's basically a guy who gets beat up, who is in the system. Bad stuff happens to him. The society comes after him, and he's maybe adopted, maybe not, and all this terrible stuff happens to him, and then he's a representative, a hero for the underdog, and he also incites all these people to attack the wealthy.
Yeah, to the degree there was a social justice angle in it, I guess I quite liked it. I think I found it refreshing in the sense that what was curious about the kind of political alignments in this film was that mob justice was aligned with incel revenge. And right now in this political status quo, there's no such alignment or correlation. And in fact, to the degree there is a kind of herd behavior, movements towards mass or mob justice, let's call it, those people hate incels. The incels are the scapegoat for all of the kind of, a lot of the social justice activists. So this kind of really screwed with that. And in a way that was bad on the front of verisimilitude. It definitely didn't capture what's going on at the moment, but cool in a way that I really appreciated and found kind of aesthetically and politically interesting and quite nice, quite kind of attractive. And it made me start thinking about like, what if all the incels could actually get together with like Occupy Wall Street style protest types? That would be a really cool thing, short of the killing and all. I don't support killing, but
But the incels are kind of like this Rorschach inkblot test, where like the people on the right think that the incels all become SJWs and that they're indistinguishable.
That's right.
Right. But the people on the left think all the incels become alt-right,
That's
online
right.
trolls.
That's right.
And so
And they're right.
they're kind of blamed for everything from all sides. And there was also an echo of Bain organizing the kind of Occupy Wall Street protest vibe in the final Batman movie by Nolan, right?
That's right.
So it's almost like the Joker rallying these people up kind of inspires Bane later.
Okay, right.
Oh yeah.
I think Marxists should like this movie because it's very kind of class first social justice. There's very little virtue signaling around race and women and all this kind of stuff. But the main axis of antagonism and revenge is essentially class.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of identity politics. It was like good old-fashioned Marxist 1848
right.
uprising.
But to the degree there was identity politics, the favorable subject is the incel essentially, and that's pretty remarkable. I mean,
yeah. So when there were all those at the very end, he was dancing on that car, which actually that was the only part of the film where I thought it's improbable that he just was in a car accident and now he's dancing on a crumpled car. He would break an ankle. But that aside, is that there were all these men around him chanting for him, cheering for him, and these people had saved him. They showed such tender care for him when otherwise they were just doing so much violence. I was a little bit touched at the care they showed when they pulled him out of that police car.
yeah.
And what was I imagining behind all those masks? I was imagining 4chan trolls and
That's right.
incels. But there was just too many for it to be just that. He had wider appeal. So what were you imagining were behind all those clown masks?
I don't think it would need to be bigger than that. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the anonymous protests that happened a little bit before Occupy and around the time of the Occupy, there's hardly a smaller constituency than people who wear Guy Fawkes masks on behalf of Anonymous, an international hacker group. And yet they had protests. They had IRL protests that they organized through the internet in which people showed up with anonymous masks, the Guy Fawkes masks. And they had numbers that were at least as big as the numbers surrounding Joker around the cop car. So I actually think the quantitative power of the incels would be more than enough to support what we saw.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, like, the number of people who supported the American Revolution was allegedly only 3% of the colonists.
Right, you only need a very vocal and active minority.
This is something interesting about the incel people talk about. And so of all the people that could have helped this dude in the whole film, if somebody had actually had sex with him, that's, I think, the only chance. I think you would have all the social services in the world, all the psychiatrists prescribing all the drugs, people being nice to you. And don't shoot the messenger. If you're not getting laid, you're going to be a danger to society.
So we should pay young women to have sex with incels. The question is, how much should we pay them?
Well,
honestly
we're
think
not
that
suggesting
prostitution
this.
might actually be a really good intervention for all kinds of problems, but we're too grossed out to talk about it. And I do think that it's I mean, certainly tenderness and love, and this woman that I met, Ginger Gorman, when I was in Tasmania, she thinks that she might have prevented a couple of guys from being homicidal or doing real harm by showing them some love. And I'm not sure if that's the case, but I definitely think that having sex with people is a good way of talking them off a ledge. Just saying.
It's plausible.
Or even a ledger.
Oh, dark. That's the laugh. I feel guilty. You've got a natural Joker laugh, have you not?
Yeah.
Fiance. I'm totally cool with this. Just don't, not when we're having our wedding vows, right? Not that one. Some other little.
I will pray for Heath Ledger, and I mean that seriously.
Yeah. I think I went to church with my mom, and because I've been living with Justin, I used to roll my eyes like a proper whatever atheist asshole when people said they were praying for me. And my mother has this friend. She put her in the. This is a total aside from the normal conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time in my life, I actually have a very sweet feeling if somebody says that they're praying for me or praying for somebody else.
I mean,
and it's you really, Justin.
Oh, that's very sweet. I mean, on some obvious level, it makes no fucking sense and is retarded. Like, I totally get that. And yet, from a slightly different angle, it makes perfect sense. And it's quite like an obvious, nice thing to do that is appropriate.
Well, it's totally overlaps with your loving kindness.
Yeah, if you do loving kindness meditation,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about one person usually who is having a hard time, and I know it doesn't make any difference, and in some way that makes it even more beautiful to send loving feelings to somebody when you know it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, just a few minutes ago we were sending loving kindness to fucking Joaquin Phoenix, hoping he recovers from this role.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
and it doesn't make any difference, but it's still a nice thing to do.
but then because of that, it does make a difference. That's the weird thing about it. Right? I mean, there are obvious empirical knock-on effects, right, that no one would deny.
Well, you remember when I was reading all the Christian marital advice books, right? And The Power of a Praying Wife in particular
I
by
read that
Stormy
book too.
O'Martian.
Yeah.
And she points out, hey, if you're having conflict with your husband, the
pray
thing
for
to do
him.
is first you talk to God before you talk to the husband, right? And then you get all your stuff out of your system, you calm down, you figure out what your real grievance is, and then you have the discussion with the husband.
Genius.
And I think that's a good hack.
Hell yeah,
It's a
God
really
is the
good
master hacker, dude.
Yeah.
God is the hacker behind the entire simulation. Literally the best hacker ever.
Do you want to check your sound?
No, it's fine. I'm just saying that I just thought I would read something else about the film to get us back on the topic of the film. Oh my god, every time Justin does that, it's so funny.
Laughter is prayer.
Have you ever seen The King of Comedy from 1982? Robert De Niro's role as Murray Franklin, the talk show host who gives Arthur Fleck, the Joker, his big break, is an ironic role of reversal. In The King of Comedy 1982, De Niro himself played Rupert Pupkin, an unsuccessful, mentally unstable comedian who stalked and kidnapped his favorite talk show host, Jerry Langford, played by Jerry Lewis. He says losing that much weight makes you go crazy. Not if you fast, and you feel pretty good. Which is what I need to do tomorrow, which is why I'm having so much food tonight. 3 of the previous actors have played the Joker. Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and Jared Leto are Oscar winners, with Ledger winning for playing the Joker. Joaquin Phoenix has been nominated for an Oscar 3 times. Maybe he thought this was going to close the deal.
Oh, it will. He'll get it.
Yeah, it was fucking amazing.
Dude, these like boozy seltzer waters we got, not very good.
Oh no.
But they're 0 calories, so they're keto, so that's kind of good. Just not much.
So our little podcast is sponsored by Smirnoff, but we're dissing Smirnoff. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So I guess we're gonna lose that sponsorship.
Okay. So somebody asked Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix walked out of an interview when asked to respond to concerns about on-screen violence in his new film Joker, which tells the origin story of DC comic book villain. For an article, Telegraph film critic Robbie Collins sat down with the actor and asked whether he worries the new film might perversely end up inspiring exactly the kind of people it's about, with potentially tragic results, end quote. Phoenix balked at the question. Why? Why would you? No, he stammered before abruptly getting up and leaving the room. An hour later, after negotiating with a Warner Brothers agent, Phoenix returned to finish the interview, explaining that he panicked because he hadn't yet considered the question. Throughout the rest of the article, Phoenix does not provide an answer. So he never thought about how this might actually adversely affect other people or like make people kill other people.
Well, the thing is, you talked about violence being aesthetic and stylized. I found it really gritty, and it had that kind of 70s, like awkward, like you try to stab somebody and you kind of miss and it's all fucked up and the violence is excessive and it gets blood all over everywhere, and not in a kind of Quentin Tarantino stylized kind of way.
You have to say the bloody footprints at the end, though. That's very stylized.
But it wasn't, they weren't like symmetrical or lit in a sort of like Sin City kind of way.
We have to agree to disagree. I thought all the violence in there was really stylized.
Okay, here's the thing though. I think, let's say that I'm incel, kind of on the verge of possibly doing a mass shooting, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Right? I watched this movie, and this is one of the reasons why I think media effects research is very ambiguous, not very impressive one way or the other, is that it's just as plausible that I go to see this movie and I'm like, holy shit, people understand me. This is awesome. Like, my type of fucked up person has a little bit of the limelight, and this means maybe now there's opportunities for me. There's, my stock price is increasing. I don't need to do that mass shooting anymore. I think that's just as plausible.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, in a kind of weird way, you could at least get a signal that, hey, this is sort of fundamentally a movie about neurodiversity. Not specifically
Geoffrey Miller.
No,
It kind of is. Go on.
not specifically Asperger's, obviously, but the guy had a different brain than like normies, and there were clearly a bunch of screenwriters, director, producer, like really trying to get inside this guy's head and then show it to America in an excellent movie that kind of takes the guy's condition and distinctiveness seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you, in a way, as a kind of crazy incel, you'd be getting these weird signals of kind of costly investment in your cause or your life that I think could be kind of
inspiring.
That's right.
you might feel like, yeah, there's kind of hope. Like, I know mainstream society doesn't want me to be kind of excellent in that way, but he kind of got his act together at a certain level, right?
Well, he was way more competent at being bad at the end than he ever was at anything else. Like, he got more and more competent when he went off his meds and he had this mania, and then his delusions of grandeur ended up going into actual grandeur. That entrance he made on stage, you would definitely think it was just like a thing that actually hadn't happened. And I got sort of Breaking Bad. I thought about that a little bit, because Breaking Bad, there's this whole question about whether or not the last episode is something that really happens. And the whole time, until you get dispositive evidence of it, you're thinking, he's having a long, beautiful delusion about his making out with some psychiatrist on stage, being on Murray Franklin, being introduced as a Joker, everything else. And he planned on killing himself on stage.
Yeah.
After a knock-knock joke.
So, I guess, in terms of, like, quantum multiverse branching, there's one version of the film, right, in which he never actually goes on Murray's film or show, and that's how kind of delusional. There's another version where he goes on the show and then he kills himself with the knock-knock joke. And then there's another version where he becomes hero to the people.
This is the kind of content you guys are here for. Joker, incel, suicide, multiverse.
I was really trying to remain in his shoes for as long as possible, to the point that I was wondering if like maybe the black girl that he was dating maybe was like putting him up to this. I was kind of thinking like maybe this woman is like a plant put there by the Waynes, and she's like mind control by the Waynes.
Wow, Wow.
I didn't really think that. I'm just saying, like, I was entertaining that.
Your view of this film is really super different from mine.
No, okay. I mean, what I'm saying is, like, when you're watching a movie, you're always scanning for what possible futures the movie holds, right? And that's always a very wide set of possibilities. It's a virtual field of differences, Deleuze might say. And as you're watching it, you're kind of playing with what universe you might be in, because you don't know. I'm just saying that's one of the many that I
like this because I remember watching Fight Club, and then at the end, also spoiler for Fight Club, whatever, the Brad Pitt dude and the Edward Norton dude are the same dude. Uh-huh. And I watched it again, and that doesn't even make sense. Like, there's just so many ways that they diverge. There's no way that you could have guessed that in the film.
No, you have to watch Fight Club like about 5 times, as I have done, before it really makes sense.
Okay, well, I've watched it twice, and that was 2 times too many.
But a nice thing about this was there's not the kind of big build up of mystery, and then the M. Night Shyamalan sort of oh, he's really dead, and or there's none, like, apart from the relationship with the girlfriend.
Well, even that was super obvious to me right from the get-go that was a delusion. So I like that about this, because it had enough mystery about whether or not he was in a delusional reality or the actual reality, right? But also that it had enough clues that a reasonable person could figure it out.
Yes, and in general, what you're saying reminds me of the other thing I really liked about this movie, which is that it's relatively simple. I like movies that are simple. I think there's this kind of trend lately to make movies really complex, and it's like you have to Google afterwards to really kind of like get what they were trying to say about the whole movie. They pack in too much, too many characters, too many weird, like, discontinuous plot lines, and I don't like that type of movie. I think that's a bit of an overhyped kind of tendency. And this was like, there's really only one character of interest, really, and the story, the struggle is pretty simple. It's a pretty clear-cut struggle. There's a few other characters that make it just complex enough to be interesting, but there's not really, the stakes are quite clear, I would say. And I like that.
It's a character study, and the character is complex, but not impossibly so.
Yeah, definitely. I also like the hacking media angle. It kind of reminds me of that movie Network. You know that? While we're talking about like references, I don't know if there's anything explicit, like a real conscious reference here, but I like that motif of like crazed people who are underdogs who are gonna like hack the media establishment and fuck them over in a way that they can't understand. I really like that.
There's a really strong callback to Network. 1975 was right smack dab in the middle of this.
That movie's amazing.
This New York. So in fact, not to go down film studies rabbit hole, but I think anybody who's really familiar with 70s cinema will think this is kind of a genius pastiche of a whole bunch of themes from that.
I like how we started this by talking mad shit about film theorists and how they're so stupid, and now we're all film theorists.
Oh, so one of my strongest reactions to the movie was I think it kind of consciously highlighted kind of the weirdness and absurdity of human laughter and humor generally. Yeah. Like the whole concept of people laughing about anything started to seem really creepy by about halfway through.
Yeah, and it is true that this guy's laugh was unsettling. I actually identified with him as somebody who also has an unsettling laugh.
You have one that's sort of the socially presentable laugh, and then you have the full-on witchy psychopath.
Is too much.
Like after Galadriel is seduced by the power of the One Ring, and she becomes like the dark elven queen. You're kind of like that.
Well, thank you. Yeah. But I did think, when he was cackling a lot and cackling at the wrong things, I did think humor is psychopathic.
I thought that's a good point. I also thought that it was weirdly kind of pro anorexia in some sense, because I thought like he looked pretty cool and badass in his emaciated state. Like 9 out of 10 times I thought that it looked kind of on net positive.
Holy fuck.
What did you think? No,
when he sucked in his belly and when he was dancing around and stuff, there were bones of his that you could see on him.
He had extra bones too.
I thought it was badass though. I thought the whole look was like badass. I don't know, Jeffrey. What do you think? You're skinny, dude.
There were some scenes. I remember my dad like never really directly compliments me, but I came to the airport one time and my dad said, "Diana, you lost weight. Your head looks bigger." And this guy, there were scenes where his head just looked massive, and that's what happens when you lose a lot of weight. Is your head, I was kind of communing with this grasshopper the other day, and a grasshopper's head is massive on his tiny body, and he reminded me of that, like that skinniness. Okay. But I didn't think it was hot. You could see every muscle. Like when you're that skinny, you have a six pack. It doesn't matter what you do. Like if you can sit up, you have a six pack.
Yeah. Good point. What do you think, Jeffrey? Joker, hot or not?
Well, I'm thinking about his sort of dress style and his what Dawkins would call his extended phenotype. Right, the beginning of the movie, he's only got two looks, like really run down poor guy who's never going to get a girlfriend or succeed, and then clown outfit, which is also like equally demeaning. And then as the movie progresses, he kind of like.
You need help?
I don't know where my steps went. I want to eat seaweed.
Oh, Diana wants to eat seaweed, so I'm going to ignore that. He kind of integrates his look and like gets his shit together and has at least a distinctive visual identity costume. Mm-hmm. But it's not really a costume. It's kind of like who he really is coming out. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna help this. I'm gonna help this woman. If you have that, that's gonna go in a bowl.
This doesn't go in a bowl. What's seaweed?
I will serve it to you.
There's another beer in the fridge. I want it.
You guys have to keep it rolling.
We have to keep it rolling, man. We can edit this shit. Some downtime. We're taking a little break.
I don't edit shit.
We've been recording for 57 minutes.
We could have Ben edit it. I don't edit podcasts. I just started editing video yesterday. It was the first time I had to edit video in a long time. Yeah, because I'm doing these courses now. So
is it a pain in the ass or is it fun?
I don't mind doing it for focused things that have a trajectory of likely money making implication. For like kind of rote work over and over that doesn't really necessarily have particular rewards attached to it. I find editing work to be kind of grueling and shitty. Personally, some people like it. What do we have? Seaweed chips? No, I'm good.
No, try
I'm not
it.
like earthy like you guys.
No. Jeffrey hates it too.
It's just terrible. It's like you take sushi and take away everything good about sushi, and you just leave the seaweed.
Yeah,
you're not really selling it.
That's what we're eating.
No thanks.
But
so why do you?
The cool thing is you can do ASMR with it. Check it out. Oh, all you listeners, it's seaweed.
Jeffrey, why are you eating it though? If you just said you don't like it.
I'm crinkling it.
Because I enjoy watching Jeffrey eat things that he hates, and then he enjoys my amusement.
I'm gonna make a mouth attack on this seaweed, and then you have to do your
Cackling.
Dark Galadriel. Okay, here we go. Here it goes. So that's the reaction I was aiming for. I've fallen on that sword for all you listeners. Jesus Christ.
Joker did not eat one thing at any time.
He didn't, did he?
No, he made his mother some food.
But
there was nothing of him eating. No, he's just smoked a lot.
Right.
There's a funny Amy Schumer where she's like trying to get skinny. She goes to this person and they're like, okay, there's a few options. You can Instagram food and then never eat it. You could chew it and then spit it out. There's all this stuff you could do. And this woman comes in and she's a skeleton. She's like, what did you do? She's like, I just smoked. She's like, tight, I'll do that. And it's true. You could just smoke.
That's cute.
So we were talking about Joker's outfit. And in a way, he's sort of like incels who are kind of getting their style sense together. Yeah. You know? Like aspirationally, but they don't have very good taste and they don't really know what direction to go. They just need to. In a way, he was peacocking, like mystery.
I loved what he was wearing at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew you would love it because it's saturated colors. wasn't asymmetrical enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of color theory stuff going on in the film. It started off really gray.
Yeah, the art direction was amazing, I thought. I was going to say that usually Diana and I think, disagree on movies, or not always, but often, let's say. But this time, we pretty much are agreed that we both loved it, and all the nice things you said about it, I completely agree. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was just personally, just very fun to watch. I just thought it was I was intrigued the entire time. I was very interested the entire time. I just felt joy and pleasure at the spectacle basically the entire time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought it was cool.
It was easy. I mean, so you and I are the same way, which is that we're not like sit down in front of TV people for 2 hours kind of people. Mm-hmm. And I find it very easy to focus for the whole film. Whereas in action films, I often don't find it very easy to focus. Like Geoffrey and I went to go see one of the Star Wars in Bangkok, where you can spend like $4, get limitless popcorn and alcoholic drinks, and sit in a big leather chair.
Amazing!
Huge reclining leather chairs.
That sounds
that
awesome.
Vibrated and did all kinds of magical stuff.
And
it was like nice
it
or
was
seedy?
Glorious eye candy Star Wars.
I couldn't even sit through the whole thing.
And
we saw it on Christmas Day, right?
We literally had to leave.
It was terrible.
Oh.
Anyway,
This was like a high end place,
yeah, so as
Awesome.
as high end as.
but cheap because it was
Bangkok.
in a third world country.
It was actually in Chiang Mai.
Oh, so that's
We were in
developed.
Chiang Mai,
Yeah.
Christmas Day, 2017.
17, yeah.
16 we were somewhere else.
Yeah, but nobody cares.
Of course they care. People want to. You would be surprised.
It's
That Thailand
You
trip,
do you.
though, we should do a podcast just about that Thailand trip.
And yeah, you can get really, really fancy cinema tickets. Although what they think is cheesy popcorn is fucking terrible.
Ugh.
But anyway, I couldn't. And you were not that distracted. I only saw you look at your phone a couple times.
Hey, my wife is away. All right.
Your wife is away. Oh, you're
Yeah,
away.
I get to use the
I
phone
think that's
a little
actually
bit
very
more than
sweet.
usual.
It's very sweet.
So I had
No, actually, I was making notes. I always make notes in the movies.
Right.
Yeah. And my wife also.
So the last movie Justin and I did a full analysis of, Captain Fantastic,
Oh yeah.
about a kind of lefty prepper survivalist guy raising 5 kids in the woods. I thought is kind of an interesting contrast to this, because that guy, played by Viggo Mortensen, he was also kind of a hard scrabble, probably weird guy who got kind of civilized by his wife, and then had the responsibility of these kids. And it kind of left me wondering, yeah, if the Joker had actually had like one decent girlfriend in his 20s and then had a kid or two as sort of an anchor, could he have turned out quite differently? I almost thought, yeah, the Joker is what happens if, like, you're a directionless young man without hope and you don't have, like, kids or a future to think about.
Right.
So it's kind of a pro-natalist warning against anti-natalism.
That's an interesting take. See, for some strange reason, a couple times I was thinking of Better Call Saul. Another kind of, I think, very amazing character who kind of represents a, kind of neglected, underrated ne'er-do-well who's nonetheless able to make something for himself through ingenuity. Oh, I don't think
I'm just chastising my fiance for eating crunchy seaweed when we're recording. Oh, now she's giving me the finger. She's uppity. Did I mention she's ovulating?
Now Diana's
we
looking at him very
that.
aggressively.
Oh no! Now I'm being punished by the seaweed.
Stuffing seaweed.
How to
in
train
her
your
mouth.
boyfriend with seaweed.
I kind of wish I wish I could go back temporarily to 1970s New York City and just roam the streets. It just seems so wild, man. Like you were saying before that you had some experience in that context a little bit. Is that right?
Well, so I was a freshman at Columbia University, Upper West Side, in 1983. I got there. And there were still a lot of kind of leftover pockets of 70s New York.
Okay.
There was still, the subway was super gritty, scary.
Was it that full of graffiti?
It was absolutely covered in graffiti
Really?
in the late 70s, early 80s.
It's so badass. I like it.
The beggars were super aggressive. Like, there were these weird gay bars everywhere, and like the students would speculate on what goes on in there, and we had no idea. There's still a lot of heroin, but also cocaine coming into the scene.
And for people who don't know, listening to this, murder rates were like way higher.
They're insanely higher. They're like 20 or 30 times higher, and the rate of rape was, I think, also about 20.
Like people today are hysterical about mass shootings, and they're obviously a problem. It is scary, but murder is much more common back in the 1970s.
Was it double the murder rate or triple the murder rate? I should look it up.
At least, yeah. And everybody got mugged all the time.
Right.
People would carry a second wallet, the mugging wallet, to give to the mugger that had less cash than the regular wallet. So I totally related to all of that. But I loved it. I would go out for long walks, like late at night by myself, and just kind of stalk around and see what was happening. Like 4 or 6 mile walks.
In some sense, it kind of makes the gravity of what the Joker did in the end kind of not that bad, you know? Like, he just shot one guy, not defending it, but, you know, in a kind of crazy New York City.
Guys. And then there was the next stabbing.
The 3 guys, but they deserved it, kind of, right? I mean, they attacked him. That's arguably self-defense. He shot those 3 arguably in self-defense.
Yeah. Well, the first one was self-defense. The second one was a little gratuitous.
The third
one was pretty much like hunter and prey.
Yes, that's a good point. Good point.
But it did capture how incredibly fucking annoying yuppies were in that era. They were like late 70s yuppies.
Right.
Okay, here's a random sample. In 2012, there were 414 murders. And
in New York or where?
In New York City. In 1979, there were 200 felonies each week in the subway. There were...
I bet there were like 3,000.
1969, 1,043 murders. Yeah. 1977... where did it go? In 1992, there were 1,995 murders.
That was the crack wars.
Wait, how many?
1,995.
Okay, yeah.
In late 70s?
And in let me see what 19.
Yeah, so way more than anyone knows of now.
Well, Giuliani really solved it in the 90s.
Giuliani is Tom Wayne.
Yeah, right. Well, to what degree do you think Trump was Tom Wayne?
Yeah, I did feel a little bit of that signaling, but again, not much. To the film's credit, not much.
Yeah. It was not some kind of simplistic propaganda.
No, I didn't. There was very little of that, I thought.
So in 1994, 1,561 murders. 1995, 1,777. And then 98, 633.
Yeah.
It's less than half.
That's
Where do you think all the murderers moved to?
Well, it was stop and search, and it was profiling basically, and it was
more than 500,000 stop and frisk incidents in 2008, and in 2002, 97,000. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
Is it you know for sure that was a major causal effect?
I think that's a consensus to the extent that I understand the criminology of it.
Okay, fair enough. I have this pet hypothesis, which I'm not extremely sure about the data on it, but it seems to me that a major factor also is that law enforcement technology gets so much better. It just gets harder. And in fact, this is one of the best things about movies from the 70s or movies set in the 70s is it gives you a taste of just how back in the day, before surveillance, before digital networks, you could get away with murder pretty easily.
He kills 3 people and then they're leaving messages from it on the answering machine and sees he's at home. That's by our standards hilarious. Let's knock on your door. Oh, you're not home? I guess you're just gonna hang out for another week after you did murder.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really after the 70s that law enforcement really steps up its game. Even something, if you look at the history of the FBI, it takes quite a while for the FBI to become an actually sophisticated, effective force.
Well, back in the 30s, even fingerprints were voodoo. That
was
high-tech, freaky magic, and I've heard the FBI has people with the ability to lift a print. Oh my God, we should call them.
You know what was fucked up? That got the biggest laugh in that film, at least in our cinema, was when the little person tried to get out the door.
That was
It was
hilarious.
cute.
though.
It was so nice. I thought that was so sweet.
Well, so like I think my view is that because little people are cognitively the same as larger people, they get a pass on being made fun of way more than other people because they're not in any way cognitively disabled, right?
Okay, fair enough. I was just thinking the other point, which is that was actually a very strange and unique moment in the movie because this is already when Joker's becoming pretty late stage, kind of evil. But he's just very nice to this young man. So I wasn't even thinking about it as, I say young, that's a bit like rude because he's not young, he's just tiny.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even really thinking about the height or size issue. I just thought that was a beautiful moment because he was just like, you were always nice to me, and he gave him a kiss. And he let him go when he
Yeah,
could,
yeah,
he could have
that
killed
was
him.
that was sweet.
Was cool.
But it was before that happened to that. So he kind of forces a kiss on this elderly psychiatrist woman.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and so I think it's interesting that got like way less laughs because in some sense, because of Me Too and stuff, we think it's kind of less bad to. So,
Okay,
so
I
I think that what the little person went through, that with that man who was a little person went through, which was thinking he was going to get murdered and not being able to get out of the door, is way more traumatic than having some strange man in clown makeup kiss you a couple times, right?
Okay.
And yet that got I don't know if I'm making a point here, but that got a lesser laugh. And I'm wondering if like the laughter, like if you were to do measure the decibels on laughter for various jokes in various films over time, you would see a big difference.
Right.
Nowadays, it's considered less funny for men to be in drag, for men to be imitating women, for people to force sexual acts on each other than ever before. Whereas I think in the 70s, 80s, 90s, if you saw some film where somebody was having sex with somebody attractive or forcing a kiss on them or whatever,
Right.
you think that was way more funny.
Yes, and I think if your larger point is that there's a weird fluke in kind of the identity politics system where little people don't get enough protection from contemporary morals. I think you're kind of right. Like you can still in movies, mainstream movies, you can still get away with little jokes on little people, like the butt of the butt of the joke is the little person. Whereas like you can't joke about fat people anymore. Like you'll never see in a mainstream movie like comedy about fat people, like where the fat person is the butt of the joke. I feel like that's been pretty much eradicated.
I mean, I think whatever in Austin Powers, that was like tons of fat jokes in that movie, right?
But so long ago, right?
Yeah, that was like the 90s. I think that there is stuff like that now. There's films about, but it's mostly about, even on America Got Talent, there was like a obese pole dancer woman, and people thought that was entertaining. But it was kind of like that she could do it, right?
That's
the
much more the aspirational, positive. I mean, I passed by Victoria's Secret the other day in the mall, and like 2 out of 3 of the huge posters, the advert posters facing outwards, were like plus size.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying it's interesting. Like that's definitely a major kind of cultural wave.
Well, Victoria's Secret has got that kind of vibe. They're whatever angels. Their models are super, super skinny. But I have to say that if I was trying to find a population of people who need to be measured for bras and lingerie,
right.
that would be a much better, population because they probably, actually Victoria's Secret measurements are like super weird.
Also, it just kind of makes sense. Like all the hot girls already want Victoria's Secret. To expand the market, make yourself available to like other body sizes, right? Like it's just growth tactics, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But also, if the Joker had killed the little person at that point, I think most sympathy for him would have evaporated really quickly, and the movie would have kind of become a lot.
Well, this is another thing I was wondering
if
he raped when he was in that black woman's apartment. It cuts just to him walking out, and I was like, did he rape her? Because also he can kill as many people as he wants, and people will root for him.
Yes.
The second he rapes an innocent woman,
totally,
you cannot actually have a film anymore where people are rooting for him.
That's a really good point. You're saying at the very end, right? Mm-hmm. Where he walks out with the blood.
I'm not saying that one.
But that too, right? We're supposed to infer that he must have done something to that black woman who was his assistant, right?
But there's the black woman he thinks is his girlfriend. She ends up in he ends up in her apartment. She says, "Get out." It just shows him staggering out. There's nothing in between. Mm. It's totally plausible to me that he raped her, right? But
Okay.
if he had actually shown him the guy that you guys, the woman who you guys thought was his real girlfriend, if it had actually shown that, so a film can show him killing old people, young people, suffocating his own mother, and yet, obviously, if he rapes a woman, then that's like the end
Game
of your
over.
sympathy
Yeah.
for him. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a director's cut that shows something like that.
Interesting.
Well, it's also, there's this kind of trope in Hollywood movies of sort of the wise black woman who like gives helpful advice, and like the Oracle in the Matrix or whatever. And the three black women in this movie: the social worker, right, his caseworker, the delusional, like
The woman he thinks is his girlfriend,
right,
but not, isn't.
the non-girlfriend, and then the kind of maybe psychiatrist or
Salt and pepper woman at Arkham,
at Arkham, and they're each in a way trying to kind of be nice to him, save him, give him advice.
And it's shocking that the black woman he thinks is his girlfriend doesn't call the cops on him.
Yeah.
Like, she's really kind. She's like, please get out. And when he gets out, the police don't come immediately there. So you get the impression, well, I mean, it might just be, if you call the police from the project saying there's a strange man in my apartment, they'll be like, okay, it's a couple hours in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
So, these three black women, and they're all super different.
Yeah. But they have no effect on him. None of it does the slightest bit of good. And that kind of plays really against the kind of like
Environmentalist
a little
position.
bit of the identity politics that tends to saturate other movies.
I thought it was. I didn't see it exactly that way. I thought it was kind of striking that these three black women were. There was nothing too notable about them. They weren't really. I didn't see them as really caring too much about him. They didn't do that much. I mean, the social worker, the first one, didn't really care. She was kind of dismissing him, and as he said, like, she was never really listening. I mean, I don't fault the girl; she's just like a worker or whatever. But she definitely was no symbol of particular like ethical generosity. And then the neighbor, I mean, I don't know. I didn't think she was very nice to him.
As soon as he acted weird, she was like, never mind.
Well, but she kicked him out of her house. That was not very nice. She could have like made him some tea. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
no, her response was reasonable, but again, no ethical valence, really, positive or negative. And then the last one too. The last one, that woman, I actually like. If anything, what struck me about it was that these were opportunities for virtue signaling that weren't taken. That lots of movies today would have like some obligatory black female character where it's like, she's so noble. She's like really doing good. She's like really, it's like really playing it up to a way that's, I think, like ultimately kind of offensive to black women in many cases. In any event, there was none of that. So I actually thought it was kind of strange that black women featured so much, but not in any particularly charged way.
Goal-directed way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the black woman at the end, she's like way better than the first one. So she's way better than the social worker. She seems to really be listening and engaging with him. And she's paid well, and she's at Arkham. And he kills her. And I think, or you get the impression that he at least assaulted her. And the impression that I got is that he assaulted her because she reminded him of the first one that he had.
Okay.
They both were short-haired black women.
Right.
Right? And so, like, he's really turned evil because he's assaulted this one woman as a result of his association with the first black woman who looks somewhat like her. And so it doesn't matter how many people you kill. If you kill them just on the basis of some heuristic, you're also a black woman with short hair. That's when you've gone really bad.
Okay, so that's actually kind of remarkable if that's true, because I actually didn't make that connection. But if that's true, that's pretty edgy, right? Because here you have basically a kind of pro-incel movie that is even depicting...
Pro-incel?
Yeah, more, right? I mean...
Well, it makes the whole thing into a Rorschach test, because you could see him at the end as being the incel who turns SJW class warrior.
Right.
Or you could see him as incel who turns into like racist lynching alt-right dude,
Right.
who's like soaked in this sort of like anti-black bias just because his social worker wasn't quite as attentive as he wanted her to be.
Yeah.
So I think people will come out of the film with very different kind of political views, and it's kind of interesting because the Joker says several times, like, I'm not a political guy. This isn't about political symbolism.
Yeah, he does say that, right?
but he's this blank space where you can write in whatever you want. Bless you, honey. Okay, are we winding it down a little bit?
I don't
Can
really
do.
know what else there's to
Okay.
say. Hey guys,
You're pretty deep into that second beer, honey.
Diana's drunk.
I am not drunk,
This is
drunk.
the beginning of the patron
Drunk
only
on-
section.
Drunk on seaweed.
but I really want more seaweed.
Yeah.
And every time I crunch the seaweed, Geoffrey looks at me funny.
Do you know how many packages of that shit I would have to eat to even feel a thing? This is my beef with like health food. It's like such a small number of calories, and you have to eat so much to even
I
feel
will have
satiated.
you know that if you eat 6 of these, you can poison yourself.
Really?
Yes.
That
Seriously?
that is also the only product I've ever seen in Costco where they don't actually tell you the cost per ounce.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you know why?
Because
I
it would be
calculated it
amazingly
once.
bad,
It would
right?
be like $300 an ounce.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
This
So-
shit's delicious. It's full of nutrients from the sea.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have another package. I did eat 6 packages once, and
Okay,
I looked
incel.
So
up. I looked up. I love seaweed, man. Okay.
we are sponsored by Smirnoff
And seaweed
dried
chips.
seaweed, and
Okay.
We-
So
And Incel Association of America.
we are Justin Murphy, Diana Fleischman, and Geoffrey Miller. If you have a problem with anything we said, we would suggest that you fuck off.
I'm the Joker. Actually, I'd appreciate you to call me the Joker from now on. Is that okay,
Joker,
Robert De Niro?
Justin Joker. Man, you have done some amazing shit recently.
No, I'm gonna do a spinoff instead of Joker. It's gonna be called Broker. And
Jeffrey broke. Did you have anything you want to say, Geoffrey Miller?
I'm just really grateful to everyone listening, and I'm sending thoughts and prayers and,
Loving
We are
kindness.
sending
and loving kindness to,
feelings
to
of
all
goodwill.
you dear listeners.
to you.
Podcasts are so much easier and more relaxed than live streams.
And I promise the next one we do is going to be all ASMR style.
This microphone may not even be picking you up. Geoffrey said, "That's all ASMR style." Bye.